Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. We have Alison with us today, but as you know, I'd rather have my guests introduce themselves. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Alison, and please tell us about yourself. So happy that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. I'm Alison Wilcox, and my day job. I am CEO of Girl Scouts of Western New York, where we build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And then also this year in 2021, I started venturing off and starting to pursue my own passions in writing and speaking, and published a chapter in a book this year that is also related to confidence. So I'm very excited to speak on both of those.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to start right away. First of all, I love the Girl Scouts. Is it mission or motto? What you just said?
Yes, our mission.
Could you clarify? Could you say that one more time? And then after you say it, I'd love to hear what your just general thoughts are around confidence, particularly with girls that you're working with.
Oh, absolutely, Karen. So our mission is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And what I love about our mission is that we're developing the future leaders of this world. And the girls are leading today. They're leading in their communities now, and they're learning all the skills about being an ethical, courageous, confident, just a really good leader that's going to take them into the future. And just a couple of stats is that the majority of women business owners, the majority of women in elected office, the majority of female astronauts, female tech leaders, we're all Girl Scouts. And so you can really see how this program is really shaping future leaders. And empowering women's always been a passion of mine. So I was really excited to join the Girl Scouts. And what I've started really noticing about confidence, because I have been working for the Girl Scouts since 2010. I was a Canadian Girl Guide as a child. So I experienced the program for a couple of years before I immigrated to the US 18 years ago. What I have started noticing is that just some key elements that go into confidence that I think relate so much to women and myself that we're really seeing in girls. And for girls, a lot of girls are afraid to risk if they think it's going to make them look bad or look stupid or look like a failure. And so having a supportive circle of other girls in their Girl Scout troop or program, cheering them on, feeling that it's safe, it's an all-girl environment, so they feel like they can just try new things and not worry about what people think of them. And then also learning by doing, so getting out and taking risks and trying something new for the first time, that starts building up their confidence. The more that they do it, they start to learn. And so I've really been paying attention to how our program benefits girls. And I've been noticing as I step out of my comfort zone more this year, how much that really comes back to those key elements we're teaching girls.
Oh, that's so good. Well, and you had talked offline with me just very briefly before this around how you're advocating for these things and teaching girls these things at work. And then there are some things that came up for you also outside of that as you're leaning into your venture. Would you be willing to share a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I started noticing was that I think I was always waiting until I felt like I'd finally arrived or finally gotten good at something before I could share it. So this year I started writing. And I had a chapter published in a book earlier this year called The Rising Sisterhood. And it's about, my chapter is about courage and how I was afraid to drive for 3 years. And sorry, not for 3 years. I was afraid to drive and got my license when I was 32, 3 years into living in America. And I'd been living in big cities, London, England, Toronto, and I didn't need a driver's license. And all of a sudden, when I was in suburban America and I needed one, I had to start to learn to drive and get over it. And so I wrote that chapter. And then what started coming up for me was all these fears and insecurities about what if I'm a terrible writer? And then like it just kept getting worse. Like we had to have photo shoots. Then I started worrying about my picture. And I share in the chapter, I had a hang gliding accident that shattered my cheek and nose into that like about 20 years ago. And so I don't like pictures taken, even though because of the scar. And I realized like, okay, I'm gonna have to have my picture taken. I'm gonna have to put it out there. We had to do videos. So all the things I'm uncomfortable. I like to lead. I like to be in person with the girls and the adults. I like, I love my staff meetings. But in the pandemic with everything on virtual and then anything on social media, I'm really out of my comfort zone because I don't like those pictures. I don't want to have to be on the videos. And then that it was like everything I was uncomfortable about came up for me. in writing, putting
Wow.
it out there? Are people going to think I'm a terrible writer, how I look? So I started realizing how uncomfortable and shaky I felt. And then I started realizing that it was when I just jumped in and did it. Okay, I'm just going to make that video. Okay, I'm going to share this chapter with a few people. Then I started noticing my confidence increased because I survived. I thought I survived that podcast. I survived that video. Okay, my chapter got read by people and nobody like called me out and said, never write again. You're the worst writer that ever existed. So I started realizing you have to do it to get confident. You can't wait till you feel confident. And then that confidence allowed me to finally publish my blog a few weeks ago that I've been sitting on for months. It was really ready to
Yes.
go. And then,
Congratulations.
oh, thank you so much. And then the responses, I started realizing, wow, if I just waited until I felt confident, I may never have actually done it and then learned. And then I'm more confident now that I'm getting responses, whether it be feedback to improve or just something that really helped someone. So that was something I really wanted to share was that, and I applied that back to what we're teaching the girls. And I see that, and anytime I go to a program now, I just see a girl applying, I'm just going to go and do it. And that's how they build their confidence.
That's amazing. And isn't it so true that we don't grow unless we're in our outside of our comfort zone?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's really alarming to me, I have to say, with the more and more work that I've done now in the last probably 10 years with women specifically, how we do hold back. And that's a big part of my story too, where I held back from sharing my ideas, even though I was in a senior leadership role. And I think
Mhm.
there's some statistic, where if women, I don't know the exact numbers, but something like if women don't have 9 out of 10 qualification or 10 out of a 10, if we only have 9, we won't raise our hand for that opportunity. And what I love so much is that you are sewing into girls at various stages of their lives to help them be more confident. And also, thank you so much for being super vulnerable around that, around your own story, because that is so, even so much more meaningful coming from the CEO. That's huge. So I am really curious about in your leadership role, for example, what has been the biggest? I'm kind of curious about two things. One is the biggest challenge or struggle as a leader related to confidence and finding your voice, but
Mhm.
also your greatest triumph where you said, "Ah, I've landed," or wow, I'm actually more confident than I thought, or something like that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think earlier in my career, I knew I wanted to be a leader and I'd set a goal to eventually be a CEO or executive director for a nonprofit. I
Oh,
really want to make a difference. So I always wanted to be in the nonprofit sector. I started as a teacher and then just kept working my way into different roles. And I had this idea that how important the leader is in setting the tone of the whole organization. I just felt that level of accountability and empowerment. I wanted to learn how to do that because I felt like I could make a positive difference in that role.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
I set that intention, 15 years probably before I was ever became the CEO, but I really studied people and I paid attention to what I felt disempowered employees, what I wouldn't want to do, and then really positive examples of what I would want to do. And what I started noticing was I wasn't getting promoted. And people would say, no, you're excellent performance appraisal. You did a great job. We really value you. And then I would share my career goals, but I wouldn't get promoted. And I started realizing it was because I think I just thought someone's going to pay attention to me, that
Hmm,
they're going to
mhm.
reward this. But I wasn't really realizing like how much I had to take ownership for sharing what I saw in a positive way, sharing it in the right ways where people might hear me, helping to influence. So
Mm.
I would pay attention to my own role. So I started realizing that I needed to be um, my own advocate. And so I was willing to leave an organization for another opportunity if that was the way to do it, or to really make sure I was sharing. But I realized like I just didn't realize like that you really do have to raise your hand. It's just like what you said, you have to raise your hand and show that you're a leader for those
Mhm.
opportunities. So I think that was something I really learned early on. And then paying attention to the way that I was saying things. So was I just criticizing like, hey, if I was in that role, this is what I would do? Or was I really being a partner, coming up with a way to share it in a way that really reflected that I valued the leader in the role too, and had an understanding of how the organization worked. That started really helping me. And I really, my best advice would be, once I found an organization and a mentor, which I found at Girl Scouts, someone who saw my potential, recognized what I could do, gave me the feedback that I had to listen to and apply to be better. That's when my career started taking off towards where I am now. When I joined the
Wow.
Girl Scouts and had an amazing mentor who believed in me, and not just mentored me, but sponsored me and opened up those opportunities for me. And I actually left the organization for a while and came back to work for her again as her chief operating officer before becoming the CEO almost 3 years ago. So I would say that was something I really learned, was just how important it is to really believe in yourself and make sure that if you're not in an environment that doesn't see that in you, that you either help influence them to see that in you, take on the development you need to be better, or find another organization and leader who can get you there. And I think that was something I really learned. And I find being a leader a learning journey. So I'm constantly looking at how I can be better. And so I definitely made tons of mistakes along the way, but I just didn't start thinking, okay, I made a mistake, so I can't do this. I thought, okay, I made a mistake. I do need to shift here. There's something I need to learn, but I still believe in myself. So it's just a matter of taking the class or hearing the feedback or trying that out, getting some coaching, and then I still believe in myself enough to do it. So I think that's the other thing too, is just knowing that we're all learning. Leaders make mistakes every day. I make tons of mistakes all the time, and I just try and get better. And that's been really helpful. And I think the greatest triumph is, I think leading during this pandemic has just been so hard, and I'm sure we're all tired of even talking about it or listening about it. But I think earlier this year, I just realized, like, I was taking everything on my own shoulders, and it's not about me. I'm just one person in the organization. I do have one of the highest amounts of accountability there is, and I take that really seriously, but we're a team. And so I started, instead of, when I just hit a point where I thought I don't know what to say anymore or what to do, I turned back to my team and I just held listening sessions, and I did one-on-ones with different staff members and listened to them, and they told me what was needed. And then we moved forward, and then we've actually been fairly successful throughout this, where we've been able to keep our doors open. We've been serving girls the whole time, whether virtually or in person. We've been keeping everyone safe, and we're starting to see the recovery efforts come out, and seeing people excited about what we're doing and having it give them a sense of purpose and knowing we're making a difference has been just phenomenal. And it was because I realized, like, it's not really on me. My job is just to be there to help empower everyone else and shine the light on them. And that was a huge change from my ego back to what it's really about.
Oh, wow. That's so powerful. Isn't it amazing? I remember one of the first management courses that I took 20 some years ago. And the guy said something like, well, why don't we know what our employees want? Or we don't know what they want. And then somebody else said, why don't you ask them? I mean, it's sort of this funny, like,
Yes.
I think a lot of times as leaders, we feel like we need to have all of the answers, or for whatever reason, again, whether it's ego or responsibility. And yet it does make life so much easier when you
Yes.
just ask.
It's so true. I know. And actually, when I thought that, I almost laughed at even realizing that. And when I shared it, a lot of leaders told me they felt the same way. You just start forgetting that
Yeah.
you're just part of a team, and that's really, you really need to know what everyone needs and what they think, and everyone else, combined, everyone's smarter than any one individual can be.
Yeah, that's for sure. Boy, I also think back to one of my happy or what do you call it? My own triumph moments of when I first started out in management. I remember I was working at the Gap in the corporate office, and I surveyed everybody and asked what I did well, what I could do better. And it was really enlightening to hear, because there were things that I didn't even realize that I did. It's that whole blind spots. Like, for example, not prioritizing our one-on-ones. I would cancel apparently a lot because of client needs, but sometimes it became too much of a pattern. And it's such a good reminder of our most important clients are the ones that are the employees that work internally before we can really fully serve the external clients. So
Yes, so true.
I'm remembering that well, getting input from others. Well, what else related to, you mentioned advice a minute ago about the advice that you were giving us. What advice would you say is the best you've ever gotten in your life?
Yes. I've gotten such really good advice. I think like I guess I'll share then where one of my biggest blind spots is that I talk like, and I talk without processing. So I'll just start talking.
Okay.
And that as a leader can be a strength. So it's like working your way up. If you're putting up your hand and you're speaking, you seem engaged, and it was like I was being rewarded for that behavior. But the more senior I got into management, it became a detractor because everyone you're leading, like they have a lot of opinions and thoughts, and they want to feel validated, and they want to know you're listening. And even though I did really care what they thought, if there was silence, I wanted to fill it. So if we're just sitting there, I'll just be like, I can't stand a vacuum. I have to just start talking, and I speak quick, and I don't need time to process. So I just start going. And so for people that need time to process or just need a little more space, I wasn't comfortable with that. And so I just filled it. And so one of my mentors said to me, for you, and this was before I became CEO, but pretty soon before, she said, that's the one thing for you. I really believe you need to, half the time you want to speak, don't. She said, just try
Wow.
that. Just try that, because
Ah,
and it's part of when we talk about confidence, it's an insecurity. It's just, if I'm in a room and no one's speaking, like I get anxious.
yeah.
It's not like I really want to dominate the conversation, but I just can't. I'm just like, should I be talking? But because I felt as a leader, I'm supposed to be engaged with people, and that's how I knew how to do it. And so when she told me that, I really started paying attention. And so I actually still watch myself just to say, am I making space for other people? And it really has helped. And I think it was really critical to me being able to forge really good relationships and trust. Still something I have to work on. I definitely, if you surveyed anyone I know, they would say she talks a lot. Like, it was still there, but I brought it down, and I pay attention to the power of the position I have, and I'm
Sure.
conscious of it. And so I think it was important for me to be aware. And then I had just thought of something when I'll have, if it comes back to me, I'll let you know. But I had a tagline back over to confidence related to that, but
Oh,
I'll
okay.
stop for a second. Yeah. Totally
Yeah.
forgot.
Well, you have been so gracious around and humble around your own mistakes and things. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share one of your biggest mistakes, a specific example, and how you recovered from that or what you learned.
Mm. Yeah, I think again, made tons of them. So one that's just coming to mind is, like, I think early in the pandemic, we had to do so many communications. And I that was before I really realized like how intentional communications need to be, especially in very critical times. And so we were just sending out materials quickly early on, and it was a really fraught time because we were about to shut down in-person activities, and we had cookies all over people's living rooms all over Western New York. And so we were about to tell them, like, for the next 2 weeks, we have to shut down operations. So that when people participate in the cookie program at Girl Scouts, so the girls earn proceeds to fund their activities, and and then the other part of the proceeds come back to the council. So it funds really a large portion of the Girl Scout program. And the
Mhm.
girls are learning key literacy, financial literacy skills and entrepreneurship skills. So it's a wonderful educational program, but the cookie sales also like a big portion of our revenue. So it was really critical that all these cookies were out in people's living rooms, and it made each of these girls and families feel responsible because they sign out the cookies and they're responsible for the funds. And all of a sudden they're sitting in their
Oh,
living rooms and we're shutting down the operations. And so it was something that we wanted to tell them about cookies, but I hadn't thought about that for the communications. It was everything. It was the programming, it was people's safety. And so just sending out things without fully thinking it through, it came across like that was all we cared about when we were really truly trying to
wow.
serve. And it really taught me. And so that was probably one of my bigger mistakes early on, was just really paying attention to people's emotional needs with communication and really thinking
Mhm.
about the empathy and how people felt. And so I actually learned from that and realized that I needed a team of experts. So for the rest of the pandemic, anytime anything came, we had a communication expert. We worked with legal experts, just anyone who could help be that extra eye or lens, and share guidance, and then be very intentional about anything that we are communicating to our members. And for leaders, I think that's just something I would definitely say is knowing when to bring in expertise.
Mhm. Mhm. Boy, what That's so we all learned so much during the pandemic, didn't we? Did I lose you, Allison? Oh, shucks. You're frozen. Bummer. Let me pause the recording here. Well, as we wrap up here, Allison, I'd love to know if there's anything that I haven't asked you that you want to relay to my listeners.
Yes, I just knowing the focus that you have, I think I just wanted to say that a big theme for me, and it's part of how I've lived my life and my new blog also that I started this year, is that we have this one life. So everyone who subscribed to your podcast, I'm sure, has big dreams for
Mm.
themselves. So this is for anyone who has big dreams, especially if you haven't yet arrived there. It's just completely believe in yourself. And again, just look at the next step. So for me getting to the CEO role, it took me multiple steps. It was, what's my next step? I went back and did my graduate degree in leadership. So I learned how to be a leader. Then I started taking on progressive roles. For my writing, I started with one chapter because I wasn't quite sure how to start with a whole book. I started with the blog because I thought that way I can get real-time feedback on what works before, again, I go down the road of putting a whole book together, because I'd really like to know how people respond. And so one step can feel really scary. Like I said, I was terrified this year, but it's so much more doable. And so that would just be my recommendation, is to believe in yourself and take that one step, and you'll gain confidence every step that you do. And surround yourself with supportive people who, of course, you want honest feedback, but you want people who are going to encourage you, that believe in you, and feedback of people that you really trust and have your best intentions at heart, and really see that success for you. And that's like a full environment of the support and the risk taking. And that's what I really paid attention to, that is provided at Girl Scouts to the girls, and what I realized as women we need also, and to really thrive. So that would just be my advice. And I learned that by doing this year, and I really encourage everyone to chase your dreams.
Oh, I love that. Well, I feel like I can't end without asking you more specifics about the blog. Can you speak to, well, what is the blog? What is it about? And then a little bit about your journey of how you came to finally go for it.
Yes. So the blog is called Birth of Adventure. And in the first few blog posts I shared, like, where that name came from, but it's around, I've traveled in multiple parts of the world. And my son, before he was born in utero, we called him Baby Adventure. And so I talk about a bit about the story, because I found out I was pregnant with him after surviving the hang gliding crash in New Zealand. So it's like a whole story that led to where I ended up today. And it's really, I just say the theme of the blog is that life is short, too short to let your dreams lay dormant or have any regrets. And it's for anyone who really yearns for adventure. So just taking on every challenge in your life like a new adventure. What's the next thing I'm going to try? How do I keep learning and growing? And so it really talks about a lot of different things. And I came up with this idea in March because my son was graduating from high school, and I realized, like, I'm an empty nester now. My whole last 18 years was being a mom on top of everything else, but now he was going off to do his own life, and what was I going to do at that time? And I was really, like, not looking forward to that. And I realized, like, wow, this is a time for me to get back into also having a gift of time for what I love to do, which was writing and traveling. And so that's when I decided to start the blog and create a trip in 2022 to Scotland, and then start writing about it. And what I found was, in sharing the stories, so many different women came up to me and said, like, I've always wanted to write, or I really want to do those things too. And so just starting to really have that connection. And that's what I found so far. And again, I was afraid to do it because I thought, what if I find out I'm a terrible writer? So finally, I just said, you know what, the only way is to do, like, so I hit launch, and it was really amazing. Within the first weekend, I had about 140 page likes, which for me, I have a small social media presence. So for me, it was awesome for one weekend.
That's
And
huge.
yeah. And so far, I've just heard that people are enjoying connecting with the stories and thinking about things they want to do, which was really the whole point, was to have some fun with it. So yeah, and I'd be happy to share the link for anyone who might want to subscribe.
Yes, that would be great. Well, and tell us, Allison, how we can reach you, and if there's anything that you would like to share, as we wrap up.
Yes, for anyone who's on LinkedIn, Alison Wilcox, and I'll make sure to share that. And also on my blog, there's a way to email me and subscribe, and which is birthofadventure.com. And I'm really happy to ever share any thoughts with anyone interested in talking more about confidence, or if you want to follow. And I also just want to let you know, I'm doing a promotion that anyone who subscribes by December 14th, which is my birthday, I'm giving away gift cards of $50 and $100 to help fund your next adventure. So it'll be a drawing after that day. So it's a good time to subscribe right now.
That's exciting. That's amazing. That's also my mom's birthday, December 14th.
Oh, we share it.
Yeah. She just passed away this June, but it just makes me think of her and go, oh, what a wonderful birthday to share. Anyway, that's
yeah, and I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah,
I
lost my mom too, and I know how much we care about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a very special date for me. So, and obviously for you. So happy early birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for telling us about the promotion. That is so generous of you. Gosh, I love it. Well, I haven't signed up yet, and so now is a good time to do it. It's nice to hear more details about it too, Alison, and I'm just so thrilled about being able to connect with you here, because you are such a model for so many people, not just your incredible leadership, but the humility behind it. It's that balance, that wonderful balance of humble confidence. So thank you so much for being here today. So we'll see you next time, everybody. And thanks again, Alison.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.